أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today we continue with lesson 12 in the series, which is a revision of key concepts, and this is the part 2. So what we've covered so far in part 1 with all the revision was how the alphabets and the consonants and the vowels work in Arabic as compared to English. Then we looked at the concept of gender, and then we even looked at the simple sentence structure, which shows the verb, the noun, and the three cases: nominative, accusative, and genitive. So today we continue with another concept that relates to nouns and adjectives, and that is how these words can be made definite. Now, there are three ways to make nouns or adjectives definite. The one way would be by adding an al in front of the word. So if you have any word like kitabun, and you add al to it, you get al kitabu. So what changes here is this double vowel becomes a single vowel when al is added to the front. So this is how it's changed when it appears as the subject of a sentence. Like if you want to say al-kitabu alal maktabi, on the desk, and there's no verb there, so therefore you'll just use the nominative case of the kitab in that particular example of the sentence. Then we have kitaban, which becomes al-kitaba. Again, you notice a double vowel becoming a single vowel and the al in front of it. Now this one is used as an object of a sentence. So in other words, if there was a verb before it, for instance, you can say kara'a al-waladu al-kitaba, right? Means the boy, which is the subject, read, and kitab would in that context be accusative in case, and therefore the A for accusative, right? Then the third one is the genitive, which is the double kasratain or single kasra. This is after a preposition. So if you just have any preposition like say fi in the book, you will say fil kitabi, right? Because this fi makes that word genitive in case. Right, so you can take any noun and you can attach the al to it and use it in the three different cases. And those are the only three cases you get for that applies to all nouns and adjectives. And normally, whatever you do to the noun, the adjective has to agree in case as well. The second way of making things definite is when you attach a pronoun. Right? Now, here we attach a pronoun who, which means his. Right? And here we attach the pronoun ya with the sukun, which is mine. Right? So kitabun, you notice it starts off with the double vowel, the tanween. And when you attach a pronoun, then it becomes a single vowel. So you have kita, bu, hu, or kita. Now here, you can't have a dhamma here. You have to have a kasra because the ya follows it. So therefore, you can pronounce b, but it's hard to say bui, with the dhamma on a ya. So normally, because of the ya, the letter before it takes a kasra to be able to pronounce that ya as a ya. All right, and the other pronouns are, is opposite of his would be her, to their, our, your, etc., even my. So these are all attached pronouns. When you attach any pronoun to it, remember that the noun must reduce from a double vowel to a single vowel before you attach the pronoun. All right, then the third way, we'll come to the third way just now. So just to give you an example where if you don't put an al on both the words, the noun and the adjective, and we said always the nouns appear first. So although we translate it as a new book, or we say it like this in English, the new is the adjective for the book. In Arabic, we changed it. We always put the noun first, right? And then the adjective that follows, right? And then also, if this is unya, then this has to be un. Kitabun jadidun. And because both words are indefinite, therefore the translation is a new book. Like if you put a al, you can put a al on both words, and you get al kitabu al jadidu. So the same principle applies. The word applies to both words. So therefore, you need to put al on both words and start with the word kitab again. Al kitabu al jadidu. However, if you want to say something a little different, where the book is new, where you like kind of describing something about the book, then you put a al on the first word and no al on the second, but no al keeps the dhammatain at the end, right? And that's why how you get, and there's no word for is implied when you have a sentence like this. And then introduced you to the pronoun template. Now, I find for me personally, this works for me in that I like to see like a table or a chart where everything is in columns and rows, where it kind of makes sense to my mind, and I then can apply it, right? So what this template will be using consistently for pronouns and for all the verbs is we're looking at three things. One is gender, and we said there's only masculine or feminine, and then the first person takes both genders as the same word. Okay, so then the second thing we said, there was the issue of who it is. It's it's referring to in the pronoun. So here, when you say he or they, it's the third person. You're talking of somebody not present, somebody absent and away or outside or somewhere else, not in front of you, right? So this is what third person is. Essentially, she, he, and they are people that are outside of your immediate environment right now, right? So outside of the room, outside of the class, wherever you are sitting. That's what person is. And then we said in terms of number, and the third concept, you have plural, singular, dual, and plural, right? We said Arabic has got this unique thing, the dual extra. In English, it's only singular and plural, but here we have singular, dual, and plural. Right, and for dual is exactly two people, okay? And this is for one person, right? And this is for more than two people. So three or more, you're using a plural form. So these are the three concepts that come into the table: gender, person, and number. And then we can look at the actual words itself. Now, why I'm doing pronouns again before I look at other things is because a lot of these are used in making sentences, right? So the singular will be all these, the huwa, here, anta, anti, and ana, right? And the dual is, you notice the alifs coming in here in all of these, right? Huma, huma, antuma, antuma. And then here you have hum, and here you have antum. That's kind of similarity between the memes there. And then the hunna for female and antunna for the female plural. And then the singular huwa, here, anta, anti, ana, and nahnu is the two plural forms of the first person. The ones that these are the standalone or independent pronouns. Okay, as examples of how these pronouns are used, you normally say he is a student. Huh? So huwa, and then you add your word for student. If you're referring to a female student where you're saying he, notice you're using the talibatun here. So it's here talibatun. Let's change the color there. All right, so here he and talibatun. All right, then if you want to use you masculine, you say anta, and then talib. And you feminine, you use anti, and talibatun. Okay? So that agrees in terms of the pronoun and the noun. And in terms of the I, for both genders, you use ana, and then you'll either use talib if you're male and talibatun if you're female. Okay, so this is essentially how these singular column works with the noun that follows the pronoun. Right, then you have the dependent or attached pronouns, where you attach it to a word. Like if you want to say his book, you'll say kitabuhu. Right? So you'll add the word kitab before the pronoun. And then also the kitab, you notice we said buhu, not bunhu. Right? Kitabun is just a book. You have to make it definite by making reducing the double vowel to a single vowel. So you don't say kitabunhu, you say kitabuhu. And likewise, kitabuha, kitabuka, kitabuki, kitabi, kitabuna, etc. Right? So this is the attached pronouns. Then you have, this is how it looks in practice. So this is how the pronouns look in the singular. Notice the who coming in there, the ha, the ka, the ki, and the e. And notice the singular vowel there, singular vowel. Right? I mean the single dhamma, not a double dhamma before you attach the pronoun. Right, and then the third way of making a noun definite is this important concept called the idafa, or the genitive of possession construction. Is unique to Arabic. We said in English there are two ways of expressing this idea of possession, where the book is belonging to the boy. You can either use an apostrophe S, or you can use the word of. If you turn the words around, or you can say the book of the boy. Here you're saying the boy's book, right? The book belonging to the boy. So in Arabic, we don't have this version of an apostrophe S. We have to do it in this format here, which is the idafa construction. Now, if you look at the idafa, these are the two main nouns of an idafa, the first noun and the second noun. The first noun, notice, doesn't take an al. Okay? But it shows that the word is definite by virtue of the single vowel. If it's nominative, if it's accusative, it will be kitaba, and genitive will be kitabi, small, just one kasra. Then the second noun we notice is always genitive. That's the important thing. That's how it gets its name, the genitive of possession. So this one is always genitive in case, right? Kitabul waladi. This al is kind of optional. Sometimes most times they use it, but sometimes it can be indefinite as well. So you can have a book, or rather the book of a boy, instead of saying the boy. So you can say waladin as well, is another way of expressing the idafa. So the al is a kind of an optional thing, but this genitive part is a must. So the two must-haves for an idafa is this and the single vowel on this one. Right? That's a combination that you look for when you see two nouns together, and it could perhaps be an idafa, and then this is how you translate it. You use the word of, and then you get the meaning of the idafa. Right, now we looked at examples of the idafa construction from the Quran, and this Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas surah was classic example of many idafas. You can see this B is a preposition. So because B is a preposition, this is kasra here. This can be u, or e, depending on how it's used in the sentence. So here it's appearing be after preposition, therefore it's genitive. And the second noun of the idafa is always genitive. Right, so Malikin Nas. Rabbin Nas. Malikin Nas, same rule. Ilahin Nas, this B is applying to all of them. Therefore, all of them, you notice the first of the two nouns is always kasra here, kasra there. Okay. And here's min as well, so this also makes it one kasra. Min sharril, and then waswas is the whisperer. And here you can see the al as well as the genitive construction there. And then sudurin nas is also the same thing. Sudur is a plural form, and then nas is genitive there as well. This fi makes this one also genitive. So this is an example of a surah where even the first nouns are genitive in case, all because of the be or the min or the fi. These prepositions make the first noun take a kasra in case. All right, then we looked at permutations of the idafa construction. So the idafa can have an adjective describing either one or even both nouns. Now, here's an example of the idafa, kitabul waladi. It's the in the book of the boy. That's the idafa construction. You notice the word big is describing book in this case. So therefore, you put the word al-kabir here, but you put it in the nominative case here because it's describing kitab. Right? In the second example, if you say the book of the big boy, this word big is now describing boy, not book, right? And the idafa is the book of, and the boy. There's the idafa construction. So Kitabul Walad is still the idafa construction. And then the Kabir takes a genitive here because the second noun that it's describing is also genitive. So the adjective and noun have to agree here in order for this meaning to be derived as the book of the boy. Now in the Surah Qul Binas, we have Min Sharril Waswasil Khannas. You can see the idafa construction here. The evil of the whisperer, and Khannas is the sneaky, right? The sneaky is the adjective, so Khannas is describing waswas, and therefore kasra here, kasra here, so therefore this becomes a kasra there. Right, so this is this principle of how you use an adjective with an idafa. Then you have an idafa can also have two nouns before the final noun of the idafa. Right, so you can have a sentence like this: the mercy, which is one noun, and then the blessings is the second noun of Allah. Right? So what this format says is you must change it to take this noun, make this the first noun of the idafa, and this is the final noun of the idafa. Right? So you change it to the mercy of Allah. The mercy of Allah is the idafa construction, and then you add this and, then you add His blessings. So this second noun here becomes, His blessings, and you adding it after the idafa. So the in between the idafa, there's nothing that appeared there. There's your basic idafa, rahmatullahi, the mercy of Allah, right? And then you're adding in His blessings. Right. So here's another example: the book and pen of the boy. So here you change it to the book of the boy first. That's the idafa, the main idafa, and then you have his and his pen. Right. So the same principle applying of two nouns related to the words in the idafa construction. Right, the further permutations here, you can have a third noun that's linked either to the second or the first of the idafa construction. Right, and here again, you need to add a word. Right, you have to add a word before to connect those three. So the first and second noun form the idafa construction. So this is the example in Surah Quraysh, the journey of the winter. That's the idafa construction. And in the third noun, this is the third year, you adding it at the end with that word safe, the summer, and the case here, notice it agrees with the winter and the summer. Both they take kasras, then you know it's the journey of the winter and the summer. Here in Idha Jaa Nasrullah, the same example, same similar principle applies. We have when the help of Allah, this is the idafa construction, and the victory, right? So it's two things coming from Allah. It's first the help and then also the victory. So this is how you say it. Idha Jaa Nasrullah, and you had a word, and then the fat, agreeing case with that word there. Right, so this is an example of also three nouns, and which ones refer to whether the first or second noun of the idafa. Then we have what is called a double idafa, meaning there's two idafas in one like construction. So if you look at it, the book of the boy is one idafa here. Right, so there's your first idafa, kitabu al. It's supposed to be al-waladi, but what happened here is, if it was just on its own, it would have been kitabu al-waladi. But because of the second idafa here, the second one here, the boy of the school, what happens is there's two idafas, so you're separating it. The one is the book of the boy, this one, and then the boy of the school is the second idafa here. Yeah? So by changing it like this, you get the sense that this word walad, we should have had an al because of the normal way of kitabul waladi for this first idafa. But because walad plays both roles of being the second noun of the first idafa as well as being the first noun of the second idafa, what happens? We said the first noun can never take an al, right? So therefore, this al that should have been there disappears. Then you have kitabu waladi, and then al madrasati. Now that's the way of expressing the double idafa, where you made one the book of the boy, but you didn't use the al because this walad is also serving as the first noun of the second idafa, and we said the first noun never takes an al. Therefore, you have to remove this al, right? Just in this context. So this is an example of a double built-in idafa in three words in succession. Now in Surah Al-Fatiha, we have this example, Maliki Yawmiddin. Again, we have two idafas. Master of the day is one, and the day of judgment is two. Right? So the word day is the one sandwich in between the two idafas. And you notice you should have said Maliki al-Yawmi is the first idafa, but because Yom is also part of the second idafa, you take the al out, so that's Maliki, then Yomi, and then Ad-Din is the last word in this construction. All right, so this is an example of the double idafas. Right, further Quranic examples of the idafa construction, you have words like abun, right? And when you use abu in the idafa construction, you have to either use abu, aba, or abi, the nominative, accusative, or genitive versions of it. Right? So if you have Abu Lahab, Abu Talib, right, using Abu, then you know that that's the father of Talib or the father of Lahab. There's an example. That's one example of an idafa. Then Abu doesn't take an al, but it can take any case, right? Abu, Aba, or Bi, depending on the sentence. And the word Lahab will be always genitive in case of Talib will be genitive in case. The other example is the names starting with Abdul Majid, Abdul Rahim, Abdul Ghaffar, Abdul Samad, etc., meaning the slave of, and any of the 99 names of Allah you can have as idafa. So that's the example of the idafa, the servant of any of those, Rahman, Rahim, Wahab, Ghaffar, whatever. Okay, those are examples of also idafa constructions. Now we have this Tabbat Yada Abi Lahab. Again, a double idafa because we have the two hands of the father as one idafa, plus the father of Lahab is the second idafa. You notice how it is expressed in one short three-letter sort of part of a sentence. Yadun, we know, is hand. Yada, this alif, yadani, yadaini is a nominative accusative of dual. And normally when you have a dual word in the beginning, in that word of the first word, and the noon falls away. So yadani, the noon fell away. So you just have yada, and there's no al because this is the first noun of the idafa construction. Then we have abi becoming genitive, right? There's genitive here, abi, or the ya, because this is the first noun, the two hands of the father, right? So therefore this has to be genitive and no al here, right? And then the second the second idafa is Abu Lahab. Part of it, there you notice again the second idafa. This one has to be genitive because it's the second noun following this idafa. And it's at the same time the first noun of the second idafa. So therefore, there's no al, but it can take any case. So Abi can work with, and Lahabin is genitive in case. Okay, so this is just an example of double idafa again. All right, so far, before we look at verbs, in summary, if you look at nouns and adjectives, you're looking at a few characteristic features. Firstly, you're looking at the last vowel on that word, like kitabun, it's bun, bin, or bin. And if there's an al, it will be al kitabu or bi. Right? So a double vowel, a tanween, at the end of a word only applies to nouns and adjectives. You can't have a tanween or a double vowel on a verb. Right? So that's the one big difference. And also this and in gives you case, right? Nominative, accusative, and genitive, which in verbs you don't have case, right? So both the tanween or the absence of a tanween or the al in front in the absence of a tanween at the end of the word, as well as the fact that it's can be on and or in. These two concepts apply specifically to nouns and adjectives, and that's the easiest way of identifying, is it a noun or is it not a noun? Because an adjective is just a slave of the noun, right? It agrees in terms of everything that the noun is, right? So if it's, if it's nominative in case, then the adjective has to be accused nominative in case as well. All right, so those are two things. And then secondly, even these pronouns, you can only attach a pronoun to a noun as such. In verbs, you have another concept where you have the person coming in as part of the word, like kataba is he wrote and aktubu is I write. So you join a prefix to get you the person, or the person doing that action. Whereas in nouns, there isn't that concept of alif nun yata coming in front of a verb, in front of a noun to change it in terms of person. Okay, then we look at the concept of verbs. This is the next big section we're going to look at. Essentially, we defined it as a doing or an action word. In other words, there's something happening or something being done. Normally, it shows us tense, right? And the three tenses we know is past tense. It happened before, it's happening now, present, or it's going to happen in the future. It tells you also who is the person doing the action. It can be any of these pronouns. Right? And verbs can be used in a particular voice as well. It's active is the main 90% of the usage of it is like active, and sometimes with passive. Now, just to give you an example, the boy kicked the ball. Here it's the boy that's doing this action. Right? But the passive, you can say the sentence even in the passive where the ball was kicked, where we don't know who the doer is. Right? So therefore, this is an example of passive voice, where this kick will then be put in the passive voice, as it were. The normal daraba is to kick or hit. And duriba would be the passive of that daraba. So you just notice that the change, the daraba, right, becomes duriba. And so this is the change in just the vowel on this word daraba changes the thing from active to passive. Okay. Then we have also a mood. A mood is either like you have a present tense or the indicative mood, or you have a subjunctive mood, adjessive mood, or the imperative, the command. Right? Now we've covered all these. Just go through them one more time, so it kind of sets in the brain a bit more easily, and we'll be able to identify things also perhaps a bit quicker. In the last section we're going to be cover over the next 3 or 4 lessons will be the forms. And we've covered form 1 in detail. We're going to look at 2 to 10 basically. But those, don't stress about it. It's not difficult. It's just there's patterns in each thing. And once you see the pattern, you've mastered it. All right, then we have the adverb. It simply qualifies the verb. In other words, it adds something to the verb's meaning. In other words, if you say, I walked, and then if you add quickly, it tells you how you walked, right? Or slowly, or lazily, or happily, sadly, whatever. So basically an adverb is just modifying or qualifying the verb's meaning, giving you added dimension of what that verb or that person doing that action, how he or she is doing that action. Right? So that's the adverb. Right. Normally you get 3 types of verbs, like triliteral, which is 3 letters. And this is also for the use of a dictionary. I told you must always look for 3 letters or 3 base letters. Then you have double verbs, where basically the second letter is like doubled with this tajdeed coming in, and that tajdeed doubles the thing. And then, so yadu is an example of past tense and present tense of a double verb. Same like hodda, yuhoddu. And then quadrilateral is where there's 4 letters, right? Zalzala, gharghara, examples of 4 4-letter verbs. Right, now we'll come to the first, the past tense verb, which is one of the easiest to remember because essentially this one only takes suffixes, right? You're going to express all the different types of person and gender as well as number at the end of a word. So if you look at the standalone, independent, we said it's huwa, here, huma, hum, right? All these are the standard ones. Now, why I'm showing you the pronouns again is because there's some features, like you look at this alif, right, and this one, it doesn't apply so much to the past tense. Then you look at this one here in particular does apply, right? This the, tuma, tum, ti, tuma, tunna. If you look at this independent pronoun, this feature is going to appear even in the verb. You'll have katabta, katabtuma, katabtum coming in to agree with this pronoun that we've just learned, the tumatum, right? Anta and tuma antum. Likewise, anti and tuma antunna, same way. You have katabti, katabtuma, katabtunna. So the second person is quite easy just to derive it from the pronoun form as well. Okay? Ana, nahnu, nahnu, that you just need to remember as I and we and we. But the feature here again, if you remember, is this noon, right? And here is a alif, or that comes in sometimes in the other tenses as well of the verbs. All right, so these standalone. Then the dependent, you have who, huma, hum, ha, huma, hunna, ka, kuma, kum, ki, kuma, kunna, and I, na, na, right? So this is the attached. If you're attaching it to a noun like kitabuhu or kitabuhuma or kitabuhum, this is how it looks when you join it to a noun. Again, there's some similarities, as you can see. This, like here, you can see this alif feature coming in all the duals here, which you find coming in even in the past tense and present tense that we're going to look at just now. And then we'll look at some of the others. But the second, this one here is very, can you see this? Is applicable directly to the past tense verb that we're going to look at just now. All right, so the past tense verb, here's an example of it to write. Now, kataba is the base form, means he wrote. If you had a ta at the end of the sukun, it's katabat, she wrote. And it's the is you masculine, and T is you feminine, and tu is I. So if you look at the singular, all have got something at the end that shows the person, right? So just the fatha alone shows that it's the he version of it, right? The ta, the sukun there shows the she of it. And the ta and ti shows the you, and the tu shows the I. Okay, so remember those suffixes, right? So here there was nothing extra. It was just the base kataba is just the he version of that verb. And then we have the duals coming in. If you look at the picture here, the alifs at the end here, all of them, right? Ba and this ta makes it they feminine too. The stuma and tuma is similar. It's for you, and the na nun alif it shows for we. And then here the wow, the alif, u is just the na. These two we've covered before, tum and tunna. This na resembles that na. So I remember this table in my mind. There's a little song. So I say u, which is this line here, u, going that way. Then it's at, ta, and na. At is this one, ta, and then na. Right? Then this one, ta, tumatum, you've seen already. And the sti, tumatuna, you've seen in this one as well before. And the stuna na is the first person. Right? So if you can just remember those few, like, unique voweling as well as suffixes that come in, then you'll remember that this is a past tense verb. So the other feature of the past tense is you notice it's like you having the verb kataba, and then as it were, you're adding only this part to it in one way or the other, and this makes it like past. So it's like a suffix, like you're putting something at the end of the verb to show past, like the verb is past tense. Right? I don't know if you see the link I'm trying to make here. So when you're adding something only to the end, you remember it to be the past tense of that particular verb. Okay. Now to see that in another format, I'm showing you we have removed the kataba. So this ideally this should also have gone out of it. So what you're seeing here is just the fatha. So if you take any other verb like say shariba, shariba, or laiba to play, you can take any verb, any three-letter verb. If you slot this verb into this particular colored block, you get sharibaya, shariba, sharibu, sharibat, sharibata, sharibna, sharibta, sharibtuma, sharibtum, sharibti, tuma, tunna, sharibtu, na, sharibna, sharibna. All right. So you can see how shariba can fit into this same table. So you got 15 words coming out of this root word shariba, giving you the person, gender, and number of that action. Labor is to play, same front, and then you add these little things that you can see. Labor, labor, labu, A to be labti, labtuma, labtunna, labtu, labna, labna. So principle is the same. Any verb, and you can take any three-letter verb and just slot it into that little orange block, and you get your full sort of conjugated table for the past tense of that particular verb. Right, so again, that song you must remember. Atana, tatumatum, titumatuna, tunana. If you remember that, you'll remember, you know the past tense. To look at it in one further way, where I'm just showing you the feature itself. It's the same thing. And u. This is at, ata, and na. Right? Here it's the, tumatum, easy. Ti, tumatuna, very easy. Tu, na. It's very easy as well. So it's the same thing. Here wherever there you see three dashes, you put the three-letter verb in there, and then you add that vowel sign at the end, and you get the full table of the past tense. All right, let's look at very short sentences. So if you want to say he wrote, you can say it in two ways. You can either just say kataba, because this fatha at the end of the word kataba is he wrote. Or you can say it like this, in like how you sing it in English, where you're saying he, and then kataba is wrote. But you notice what's agreeing. This huwa and this is agreeing. Right? Likewise, katabat is she wrote. You can say it like this, which is she wrote, or you can say it this way here, katabat. Same thing, she wrote. Technically speaking, this, if you translate it, is she wrote. You know, like you're using the word she twice, which is not really necessary, but for us, it's easier to remember it. Because one way of remembering this as well is that, you see, if you start with huwa, then automatically you remember you're talking of he, and then you must remember that whole kataba table, which one refers to he, which block it's at first, right-hand block, right on top, right? So you can only put kataba there. You can't say huwa katabat. This combination doesn't work, right? Where you're putting a he there and a he here, that just doesn't gel. It must it must collaborate. You know, the pronoun and the verb, pronoun in the verb must agree. So huwa will work with kataba, and here only with katabat. Likewise, anta with katabta, or anti with katabti. Right? Again, this combination can't work. Even this combination this way can't work, anti katabta, because it's t and ta are like antithesis. You know, they're opposites. One is feminine. You can't mix it like that. You have to keep the genders in concordance. The ana is basically for both genders. So ana is just katabtu. And there's no masculine, feminine. It's both. For both, you just use two. All right, so this is the past tense verb in a nutshell. Then we look at short sentences with it. A katabat is already, we know it's she wrote, right? So you have to use she wrote and a letter. You notice this is accusative case because this is the subject, she, this is the verb, this is the object. Subject, verb, object, that's a normal three word sentence. Likewise here, I drank, so there's two. I agree. Ana sharibtu al-ma. Home is a plural and masculine. So there the waw alif with the dhamma comes in there. Right? Kitaban, a book. Nahnu, you said we goes with na, akalna, tufahan. And anti, jealousy, that's to agree. T. Right? So these are just examples of the short sentences with the different pronouns in them. Right, then we move on to the present or future tense verb. And here we have two things coming in. We have a prefix, and here's all your prefixes, which is in the front of the verb. You have alif. That's why we're calling it an anate, right? Alif, nun, yata is alif, nun, anate. Yeah? If you can remember it as that. That's the alif there. The nuns are there. The ya is there. The tas are in these three here. Okay, so you have the anate coming in all of these. You can see here also the ya comes in, the ya ta comes in here as well. Here's the ya, and here is the ya, and here's the ta and a ta. So alif nun ya ta is a must for the prefix part of the verb, right? What comes before the verb joined to it. So that gives you half the clue as to is it singular, dual, or plural. The other half you've got to look at the end. If you just find a dhamma, and you know it's the singular. You find ani. This is from our knowledge of dual. Like you have kitabun, kitabani, kitabini. You see the ani coming in here as well in the dual of the verbs, similar to the nouns, right? And only thing here there's no ani as such, but here you have an ani. All right, so the ani is coming in there, and the una coming in there, or the una coming in there, and the na and the na coming in the feminines, and that's basically your present tense. If you remember the anate in front, and as well as these suffixes that I'm showing you, anis and the unas and the nas and that, then you know the stable as well. All right. The future tense is very easy. All you're doing there is you're adding a sir in front of any of these words. So if you have sir here, then sanaktub, then you know it means we will write. Right? So that just changes the tense to future tense. So here it will be they will write. Okay. Sataktubani in this example here. All right, so the present tense, future tense is very similar. And the only difference is you can add a sir to the word, or you can add a separate word, like totally independent. So far as a word on its own, and then aktubu, wherever you see sir or so far, you know it's something going to happen in the future. Okay. Right, and then here's that same example. We have just blocked out the word kataba, so it's not to do with writing in this particular table. So what you're remembering is this prefixes, alif, nun, yata. You see that? Alif, nun, yata. Okay. Then you have the yas coming in there, and then the tas coming in there, ya coming in there, ya, and the two tas coming in there. So the alif, nun, yata comes in the front, and then at the end you have the vowel or the old suffix that comes at the end. Okay, then this is another way of just looking at it. It's the same thing, that alif, nun, yata in front and the suffixes at the end. You can take any three-letter verb and slot it in those three dashes here. Those three, and you have yaktubu or yashrabu or yalabu, whatever. Any verb you can put in those three dashes and you work out the table from here. All right, so just to show you similarity, and I've just color coded it here to show you. If you look at the alif version, the noun version, and the noun version, and the ya and the ta here in the singular, they basically the same. There's only this feature here of the dhamma coming in at the end. Can you see? All right. Only this one is unique in that there's an ina coming in at the end for feminine. Okay, but otherwise it's all similar. Then we have the anis coming in here. Right? All the anis always dual. Just the noon doesn't take an ani. Just remember the dual is like the plural. It's the same thing. Here you have a una or the ya or ta, depending on third person or second person. And likewise, this one and that one are similar. Here we have a ya and there we have a ta. Right? So this is the present tense in a nutshell. All right, so same way I'm looking at in this short sentences. You can either just say yaktubu, which means he is writing. This means the same thing, he is writing. Or you can use a huwa in the yaktubu, or hiya and taktubu, or anta and taktubu, or anti and taktubina. There's ina coming in for anti, and ana is taktubu. All right, so the rule about pronouns is the same for present tense, that you put the independent pronouns in the beginning, in the front of it, but then it must agree. The pronoun here is in the pronoun, in the verb as well. You know, that person is there that you need to agree with. Okay, so here's just a few examples of present tense verb. She's writing a letter. This here agrees with the ta here. Ana agrees with the alif here. Agrees with the una there. Nahnu with the nun there. And T is with this. Right? So you can see the pattern of how agreement between the pronoun and the verb works. All right, and then all right, so this particular slide, maybe I'll leave it for next time, because this comes in very importantly for another concept we're going to do later about the command or the imperative. But I'll cover it next time. Because it's an important thing as well to remember, because the middle vowel of the, or rather the vowel of the middle of the three letters, like akala is the root. You look at the middle letter, you can take a dhamma. There's two examples of dhamma. You can take a fatha, or it can even take a kasra. This is kind of, you have to learn it with the word itself, because you know, you like these are just jealous, kara, akala, kataba. They all look the same in their past tense, but when you change it to the present tense, you can have a yaktubu or a yashrabu or a yajlisu. These are the important like differentiators between some of these verbs in the first form that you just need to be aware of, because we'll be using this concept in another lesson to follow. Okay, let me stop there. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. والله الصدق إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.